I'm going to retire him on this fight. He's been through a hell of a lot of wars. He's been through a hell of a lot of wars. He's been dropped continuously. I can see it in him. You can see the effects of war on his face. And respect to him. He's a fighter. Nothing but respect. But this will be it for you. You're going to be badly, badly hurt, Eddie, and I mean that. It's over for you. You will not fight again after this. You will not look the same. You will not think the same. And that's it.
The guys he's faced are nothing of the caliber of fighter I am. And he will see the night of the fight that, shit, I've been going up against shitty opponents that were good style matchups, and this one's not. And I'm fucked. Because he's stronger, way stronger, just as fast, and he's got skill sets that can dominate me any day of the week. That's what the route is he's going to deal with. He's trying to convince himself that he can do something he knows he can't.
You're never, ever going to be the same. Ever again in your life. Your kids after this fight are going to beg you, Daddy, please don't go again.
And with that, we welcome you to the Fight Society podcast. I'm Damon Martin. It's UFC 205 Fight Week officially. I'm heading to New York in a matter of hours because Fight Week officially kicks off with media events on Wednesday. I'll be at the open workouts and the press conference on Thursday, as well as the weigh-ins on Friday. And of course, Fight Night is Saturday, the biggest fight card of the year. And because it is the biggest fight card of the year, I figured why not present to you guys, our listeners, the biggest show of the year. So today on the podcast, you're not going to hear a lot from me personally, except for a little bit of predictions and a little bit of reaction to some news that came out today about Jon Jones. But we've got such a stacked show, you don't need to hear from me as much as you need to hear from our guests. We're going to be talking to UFC lightweight champion. In the main event, Eddie Alvarez is going to join us. We're going to talk to the UFC women's strawweight champion, also fighting for the title, defending her title, I should say, this Saturday night, Joanna Jedrzejczyk. We're going to talk to Frankie Edgar, former lightweight champion. He's going to talk to us about his upcoming fight with Jeremy Stephens. We're going to talk to Michael Johnson, the man who looks to spoil Khabib Nurmagomedov's run in the lightweight division. And finally, we're going to talk to former Army Ranger and top 10 middleweight contender Tim Kennedy. Stack show. Like I said, you don't need to hear much from me because with those guests, why should I talk a lot? Let's listen to the guests. Let's talk about these interviews that we have on the show today. Rolling 5 deep. Big show today. Real quick, before we get into that, and I will give a little bit of conjecture as far as this fight goes, UFC 205 on Saturday night. The big news came out today, of course. Jon Jones faced a 1-year suspension from USADA after his arbitration. He's out until July 2017. He got the full brunt of the punishment that he could get for the infraction, while USADA ultimately said that they didn't believe that Jon Jones knowingly cheated. It was obviously the way he kind of flaunted the system and ultimately didn't actually declare the drug that he was taking at the time, which was a kind of a black market Cialis pill, more or less, an erectile dysfunction drug, that was tainted. Long story short, the epilogue, the actual statement from the commission, from the USADA arbitrators read this: on the evidence before the panel, the applicant is not a drug cheat. He did not know that the tablet he took contained prohibited substances or that those substances had the capacity to enhance sporting performance. However, by his imprudent use of what he pungently referred to as a dick pill, quote unquote, he has not only lost a year of his career, but an estimated $9 million. This outcome, which he admits will be a wake-up call for him, should serve as a warning to all others who participate in the same sport. So what this means is Jon Jones is out for the next year, and he could end up getting an even longer suspension because he's going to have to go before the Nevada State Athletic Commission. It was supposed to be this week, but it looks like that's going to get pushed back into December. They could rule with USADA and give him a year suspension, which means it would just run concurrently. He would be suspended for a year total. He would be eligible to return to action in July 2017. But Nevada also has the ability to tack onto his punishment, meaning he could end up getting 18 months. He could get 2 years. They could do basically whatever they want in this situation. They are not bound by USADA's rules. So this is going to be a very interesting situation for Jon Jones, especially considering that I imagine what him and his attorney were hoping was that USADA would lessen the brunt of the punishment, maybe give him 6 months, and they would take that before Nevada and say, here's what USADA found. Here's the full findings of their committee. The anti-doping committee of the United States, here's what they found, here's the punishment they saw fit to give us, Can you please give us the same thing? And they would hope that Nevada wouldn't tack on any additional time. Now that they've given him the full year, and Nevada's not bound by those same rules, meaning they don't have to say he can only get a year. They make up their own rules. I mean, we saw that with Nick Diaz when he got a 5-year suspension for smoking freaking weed. There is no rules. It's the old West out here. So they could say you're gone for 2 years, and guess what? He could certainly appeal, but on that rule, he would be out for 2 years. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Jon Jones. What this also means is UFC 206, Daniel Cormier, Anthony Johnson, undisputed title on the line. Of course, that means that fight is going to happen, but then the winner of that fight, whoever is the champion, is probably going to end up defending the belt against somebody else early next year. Who that might be, I don't know. I mean, there aren't any real number one contenders right now. I mean, Alexander Gustafsson probably could have defined himself as the guy who deserved a shot if he would have come back and maybe fought once or maybe twice more, but now he's injured. There's no telling for sure when he's going to be coming back. Obviously, there are other guys out there, but this is kind of like the big three right now with Jones, Cormier, and Johnson. And now that we know Jones is going to be out till at minimum July of 2017, I mean, that's the least he's going to get, whether Nevada suspends him more or not. That means that if Cormier fights Johnson in December, there's a very good chance one of them will be fighting again in like April or May against somebody. Who that might be, I have no clue. But what we do know is it won't be Jon Jones, because Jon Jones will not be back until July 2017. Hopefully, this is a lesson learned. I mean, obviously, I've said this a million times on this show, and I'll say it again now. Jon Jones is, in my opinion, the greatest fighter of all time. He has more talent than anyone I've ever seen in this sport. His record and accomplishments speak for themselves. At this stage in his career, 28 years old, 29 years old, he's already, in my opinion, the best. He's already done it all, okay? But he continuously shoots himself in the foot. He is no one has beaten Jon Jones. He has beaten himself consistently over and over and over again. And until he can find a way not to do that, he's going to become a cautionary tale, because by the time he returns in 2017, he's going to have been out for another year and a half. And that's after he already sat out for a year and a half, dealing with the suspension and everything going on from his hit and run accident. So more or less, this guy's going to lose about 2.5 to 3 years of his career, right in the prime of his career, mind you. Okay, 2.5 to 3 years of his career, right in the prime of his career, because the hit and run accident, his fault, and obviously the drug testing scandal, which is also his fault. It's a terrible situation, but you can't excuse it. There's just nothing you can excuse about this. The guy continuously shoots himself in the foot, despite the fact that he is the most talented fighter I've ever seen compete in this sport. It's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. All right. Well, like I said, we got a loaded show today. You don't need to hear much from me, and you're not going to hear much from me, because we got a lot of guests to get to. So let's talk right now. We're going to kick things off with the main event, UFC 205, Eddie Alvarez against Conor McGregor. I've been torn on this fight for months, ever since it got announced, for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it's been since that fight got announced. I've been torn about who I'm picking. But right now, let's not talk about picks. Let's talk to the man himself, the champion, the lightweight champion of the world, Eddie Alvarez, as he prepares to throw down, with Conor McGregor on Saturday night at UFC 205. Eddie, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Damon.
Appreciate.
How's it going, brother?
Good, man. Good. Appreciate taking the time as always to chat with me.
My man.
So, obviously, man, fight is just around the corner. You are training in New Jersey and New York, man. How excited are you to get this thing going?
I'm ecstatic, man. It's one thing to be able to defend my belt, on a big stage, but to be able to do it on the East Coast, New York City, Madison Square Garden, it's a dream come true.
I remember when you fought in Bodog, you used to bring massive crowds with you wherever you would fight on the East Coast. How many people are you expecting to show up for this one?
We did expect a ton until Philadelphia seen the ticket prices. We're not in Philadelphia. We're blue collar. We're not as well off as the Conor McGregor crowd. So. A lot of guys are going to be staying home, watching on the TV because it's a little more cost effective. But we will have a crew there, and we will be ready to fight. Not just me, but every single person who came from Philadelphia.
Yeah, I love it. I'm curious, Eddie. You've been training for Conor now for several weeks, and obviously the lightweight division is a snake pit. You've been there your entire career, so you know. But when you look at Conor versus, let's say, Khabib Nurmagomedov or Tony Ferguson or Rafael dos Anjos, who you just fought and defeated, Where does Conor rank? Like, is he in that same league, or does he not deserve to be in that same conversation as a top lightweight?
The world will never know. He was given a title shot. We'll never know that. We'll never know the answer to that question because he was given a title shot. So for me to sit here and speculate, I'd be a fool. But some guys, if you have a nice accent and you talk shit, you get to skip the line, and he gets to skip the line. So he's going to pay for skipping the line.
You obviously you fought every kind of fighter in the world. You fought wrestlers, you fought strikers, you fought jiu-jitsu guys, you fought, everything. You fought the guys who said, lots of craziness. You fought guys who were very respectful. Is there anything that Conor has said or done that has actually gotten under your skin, or do you kind of just have to laugh at the attempt to get under your skin?
No, he's the least intimidating man I ever met. The least. I never been face to face with a man and my heart rate has not gone up or something I felt inside emotionally. That's never happened to me until I was on stage at the press conference at Madison Square Garden, where I literally felt nothing and I felt the least threatened in my life.
Now obviously, you dealt with those. Nerves is the wrong word, but you felt with that anticipation, I guess. I remember, watching you, step in there with Michael Chandler and obviously with Cowboy and with Gilbert and some of the other guys you felt with. Do you feel like this is? I know you've said it that this is, you wanted an easier fight, so they gave you Conor McGregor. Is that honestly how you feel, that this is? Like, compare Conor to how you prepared and felt going into the Dos Anjos fight. Is it much differently? Do you feel like this will be a much easier night at the office?
I never prepare according to how I feel for the fight. I always prepare to be a better me. I never take a round off or take a run off or a push-up off. That's just not in me. I couldn't do that if I wanted to. But I'd be lying to you and the whole public if I told you I thought Conor McGregor was the most dangerous opponent I ever came up against. I'd be bold-faced lying to you. The opponent I had before him was much, much harder, had many more dimensions, and that's just how I feel.
Yeah. Conor, obviously, we know his, he prides himself on his boxing and his knockout power. His left hand is what he's used. Obviously, he showed off, some good skills in his last fight against Nate Diaz. Obviously a couple of knockdowns early. He showed better cardio than he had before, all those different things. But when you look at that fight, or you look at Conor in general, do you see anything that is truly threatening about him? Like when you have to, like when you fight Dan Henderson, you have to be ready for that right hand. You know what I mean?
No, he does things well. He has his strengths, but they're nothing that good preparation can't negate. There's not a single strength that good preparation can't negate. And I was never the most technical. I was never the best at one aspect of the sport. But what I was good at was negating people's strengths and putting them in terrible situations where they're uncomfortable. And that's what I pride myself in. And I think that's what the fans have to look forward to. Just a completely dominant performance on my end, and him not being able to use anything he's strong in.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with you before, Eddie. I think I had it with you before the Rafael Dos Anjos fight. When, we talk about, you are, maybe one of the toughest guys we've ever seen in this sport. You're not an easy guy to put down, to put away, any of those things. You've battled, like I said, I've been following your career for a long time. So you're not a guy who goes away easy, I guess is the best way to say it. And you have questioned, a little bit of Conor McGregor's heart. He's, I think you said like a 7-minute fighter. He has his first 7 minutes and then he fades. We saw it, with the Diaz fight when he tapped out. All those different things. Do you question Conor's heart in this fight? And you feel like that is a big difference, the fact that you are so impossibly tough to beat, and maybe he doesn't have that in him?
Well, we all have yet to see. From what I've seen in the past, and what he's done in the past, is very questionable, and I'm not the only one who questioned it. I think he has quit in him, and I think it takes a tad of adversity and for him to get in a little bit of a fight to pull it out of him. And on November 12th, I'm going to pull it out of him. I'm going to show it to millions of people in the crowd, and everybody's going to see it.
What is the biggest takeaway for you in a fight?
We're going to reveal the quit.
What I mean, when you look at that, I mean, when you think about this fight, you said, Conor didn't really earn this shot. He was given this shot. But what does a win over Conor McGregor do for you, Eddie? Is it just about winning? Is it just about defending the title? Is it about ending the Conor McGregor hype? I mean, what does this win do for you?
What it does is it lets the media never ask me about this guy again. Every time I beat someone who I actually think is one of the best guys in the world, like a Rafael dos Anjos or a guy like Anthony Pettis and Joe Melendez, when I actually beat one of the top-ranked guys who's consistently been ranked in the world throughout their whole career, all I get asked about is this guy. So it's really, for me, it just answers the question that the media keeps asking me, and I'll never be asked about him again. I think that's worth it to me, just in that, to fight him, so I can appease your curiosity.
Yeah. Well, I know you said, even going before the Nate Diaz fight, like you were looking forward to, silencing this, this whole thing. I mean, we saw what happened in the Diaz first fight where, Conor came out like a kind of a ball of fire and you won that first round. There's no doubt about that. And then obviously, had a bad second round. Obviously in the Nate Diaz fight, he came out, had a great start. And obviously Nate came back on him there and ended up being a 5-round war. Do you believe that Conor will have a moment in this fight? Like, do you see this being a very one-sided fight? You had Rafael dos Anjos, who I still believe is one of the best fighters in the world, and you dominated him. Do you feel like this will be a one-sided fight? Do you feel like this will not be an even match at any point during this, whether it lasts 1 minute or 10 minutes?
No, I don't believe so. I don't. It's hard for me to see myself in a difficult situation. In the past, I may have answered differently. But I think my main concern and moving to Mark Henry and moving to the team I moved to, my biggest hole in my game was I made so many mistakes that I put myself in that terrible situation. I made a lot of fundamental mistakes, and being with Mark Henry and being with this team, that was our main concern the last year and a half, was correcting these mistakes and making the fight a little more flawless. So I'm doing my best with that, and sparring's been very, very well. And if sparring is any indication of how the fight will go, then we're going to do pretty fucking good.
So my last question, Eddie, I'll get you out of here on this. Your opponent likes to always make these bold predictions, how he's going to finish guys and when it's going to happen, all those different things. Give me the Eddie Alvarez take. How quickly, how soon do you finish Conor McGregor in this fight?
I think we do it under the 9-minute mark. Big, heavy shot. He goes down, and then submission.
I love it.
I could see it ending much like the Diaz fight, where I land a heavy shot and then finish with submission.
I like it, Eddie. As always, buddy, I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in New York.
Thank you, brother.
All right. The Fight Society podcast is sponsored by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage approval process into the 21st century. Fast, powerful, and completely online, it has taken out all the complicated, time-consuming parts of applying for a mortgage out of the equation. Hate searching through stacks of old files and paperwork? With Rocket Mortgage, you can easily share your bank statements and pay stubs at the touch of a button, helping you get approved in minutes for a custom mortgage solution that's been tailored to your unique financial situation. Even better, with Rocket Mortgage, you can do all of this on your phone or tablet. It's quick, online process that you can manage from the convenience of your couch. If you're looking to refinance your mortgage or buy a home, check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/MMA. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. A big thank you to the champ, Eddie Alvarez. Obviously, he is in the main event this weekend, UFC 205, taking on Conor McGregor. I cannot wait for that fight. This entire card is going to be bonkers. It's going to be ridiculous. I look so forward to being there in New York this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, I assume everyone that's listening to this show has already purchased the pay-per-view or will be purchasing the pay-per-view on Saturday night or hanging out with their friends or going to a Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever you're going to do. Watch this fight. Watch this card. I mean, the card's insane. I mean, this is the most ridiculous card I've ever seen, top to bottom. I mean, you got Khabib Nurmagomedov and Frankie Edgar on the frickin' prelims. That should tell you right there how good this card is. Speaking of which, we got, like I said, an incredibly loaded show today. Right now, we're going to move forward, and we're going to talk to our next guest, and he is actually a teammate of Eddie Alvarez. He is the former lightweight champion of the world and a frequent guest on my podcast and a frequent guest on all my shows and interviews. Just one of the best guys in the sport. I've known him for a lot of years. Frankie Edgar. He takes on Jeremy Stephens this week, and we're going to talk to Eddie about the matchup with Jeremy Stephens, of course, but we're also going to talk to him about what went wrong in the Jose Aldo fight back in July at UFC 200, and also, talking about Jose Aldo's recent, goings on about retirement, whether he's going to fight, all these different things, and obviously Conor McGregor as well, because this affects Frankie Edgar, because he still wants a shot at that featherweight title. And if Jose Aldo's out, then, Frankie Edgar might be back in the driver's seat as the number one contender, especially if he can get past Jeremy Stephens. So let's talk to the answer, Frankie Edgar.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How's everything with you?
Good, dude.
This New York card's creeping up right around the corner, isn't it?
It is, man. It's coming quick.
I knew when this card was announced that you were going to be on it, but how excited were you when you finally got the call that you were going to fight in New York?
Yeah, I was fired up, man. I was definitely, even after my fight in July, I was hitting up Dana saying, dude, you gotta put me on this card, man. So when I got the news that I'd be fighting, right next to home, I was super pumped, man.
Yeah. Now, I know you're a Jersey guy, and obviously you got a lot of Jersey pride, but what does it mean to you to be on the first ever card in New York? I mean, obviously you spend a lot of your time training in New York. It's your next door neighbor. I mean, I don't know, is this, not to dig on Jersey, but I mean, does this feel even more special than fighting in Jersey?
I think it does, just the significance of all of how, how he had to get sanctioned and all that BS leading up to it. I was one of the first guys, I think, going up to Albany, with the UFC guys and lobbying to get it sanctioned. So, yeah, for it to be the first card especially at MSG. MSG, everyone talks about, it's the most famous arena, in the world. And I mean, Ali Frazier's been there. I mean, some of the biggest, concerts. I mean, Knicks games. I've been going all that stuff there, and now I get to finally fight there. So it means the world.
Yeah, and you can literally do your warm up at Henzo's across the street and just kind of walk over there and fight, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's great, man. It's nice to have have in our backyard, have Henzo's home, available to us, the whole week, and yeah, it's nice to have home field advantage.
Yeah, and when I say Henzo's is across the street, I literally mean it's across the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could literally warm up there, like you said, and get over there in no time if need be.
I love it. Let me, before I talk about Jeremy Stephens and talk about this card, I don't like to spend a lot of time in the last fight, but I do want to ask, kind of going back to Jose Aldo, obviously we talked about it before the fight. Kind of give me your assessment of, that fight, your performance, and what went wrong for you that night.
Yeah, I just didn't make the proper adjustments. Everything that we worked on in camp, I felt like I did well. I came forward, brought pressure. I avoided the jab, avoided the leg kicks. But, he was just kind of playing, he was playing smarter than me. That's all I'll say. And I wasn't recognized. I was there kind of looking to throw and looking to fight. And he was looking to kind of move and avoid me. And I feel like I should have recognized that. And I didn't. I was kind of sticking to what we worked on in camp, which isn't a bad thing. But, sometimes you have to make those adjustments in the middle of fights. And that's something I think I do really well. So I'm disappointed that I kind of was a little stubborn in this fight and didn't think about, changing my attack. And, it may have been a boring fight if I did that, but, it probably would have given me a better chance to win.
Yeah. Do you think in some way, and this is not a dig on Jose Aldo, I'm just saying from what I was there, obviously cage side, I watched the whole fight. Did you kind of feel like he was kind of winning the point battle? You know what I mean? Not necessarily you were getting beaten up, but he was winning he was winning the round battle. He was doing enough, outpointing you and winning the rounds, but at no point did I really feel like he went for the kill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think he was playing the game, and smart on him. I'm not trying to say he was. I don't really talk down on point fighters or anything. I mean, the whole we go in there to get our hand raised. You know, he did what he had to do to get his hand raised. So I can't be mad at him for that. I should have recognized that, though. You know, I mean, I had some cuts and stuff, and I think at the fight, I looked a lot worse than the fight really was. You know, I do cut easy and bruise. That's something that's been plaguing my whole career, but. You know, in that fight, even Mark Henry was like, "Man, am I watching the same fight?" I come back to the corner, I'm all bloody, and it was just little punches here and there that nicked me open, and that definitely probably cost me some too.
Yeah. It's it's unfortunate because I always say this to guys, coming off a loss. I mean, our sport is so different than the NFL because there is no next Sunday. You know what I mean? You have that one night, and if you just have an off night, or that guy comes in with a different game plan, or whatever the case may be, bad judges, whatever the case may be, there is no do over, and that's the good and the bad side about MMA.
Yeah, exactly. You want to get in there and erase it right away, and sometimes it takes months in between, and it gives you time to reflect and think about what you need to do to maybe improve and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to hop in there as soon as possible. So I'm glad. July 4 months ago. It's not that long of a layoff, and I'll be able to, hopefully right this wrong.
Yeah. How excited were you, to get a guy like Jeremy Stephens? coming off a win over Hayden Barrow, very impressive win. Obviously, we know this guy's credentials. He's been around the sport forever. He has picked up some big wins at featherweight. It seems like, again, you're jumping right back in the deep end. They didn't give you, not that you would ever say a warm-up fight, but, they're not giving you, a guy that you're just supposed to beat. This is a very tough guy, so they give you another top 10 guy to jump right back in the deep end.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want, I still feel like I'm getting better, even though my last fight didn't go as planned. I feel fresh. I feel good, and I want to go in there and just put on a good performance and fight to the ability that I know I can. I'm still proud of my performance. My last fight just wasn't. Like I said, I just wasn't top notch. You know what I mean? I definitely prepared well. I think I left it all in the cage. Try to do the best to win, but didn't go my way. Now I got a guy that's going to come after me, and we're going to fight and. We're going to put a great show on for the fans.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy Stephens is a guy that was around when you were the lightweight champion, obviously. He was a, very guy, guy that's been around the UFC for a lot of years. What do you remember about Jeremy, and what do you kind of think about Jeremy going into this fight? Because he's very much the same fighter now that he was back then. Obviously, very heavy-handed, likes to strike. Obviously, he's got a little bit more size at featherweight over some of the other featherweights. But, I'm just kind of curious, your thoughts on them back then versus now.
Yeah, I think he's the same kind of guy. I feel he's a little more well-rounded now. I think back in the day, guys would be able to kind of avoid standing up with him and find ways to win. Now he's able to, keep the fight where he wants it much more. I think he's fighting at a higher caliber than he was at 55. But I'm excited. He like I said, he brings it. He's going to look to put me away, and I'm not going to have to chase him at all.
When you sit at that press conference, as much as you could actually hear it, because I know it's tough for you guys on the stage to actually hear anything, when Jeremy says things like, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to knock his head off, I'm going to knock him out, I'm going to ruin his homecoming, that kind of stuff. I know you don't get into trash talk, but you kind of smile and say, at least, this guy's really, this guy's going to give me a fight. He's going to come out and try to headhunt. Now, it may not work to his advantage at the end, but, this guy's going to show up and try to give you a fight.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't hear that stuff. I probably wouldn't respond anyway, to be honest with you. But everybody says they're gonna knock me out, and no one's done it yet. So, all the power to him. I hope he comes and tries to, because I'm gonna have something ready for him, and it's gonna make for a very exciting fight. That's for sure. And he's not in any boring fights. He brings it. So as do myself. So I'm excited to kind of knock someone else down that says they're going to knock me down.
I remember, and obviously you and Cub Swanson are much different fighters, but I remember his fight with Cub Swanson where, he went out there and he was headhunting a lot, and Cub was able to, kind of use more technical striking and really kind of best him in those exchanges. And you fought Cub Swanson, and obviously I think you'd be comfortable fighting anybody on your feet, but obviously, once you got out of that early part of the fight, you took him down, you battered him on the ground. Again, I know Cub and Jeremy are different guys, but do you feel like, in a way, you can kind of pick your spots here? You've obviously got phenomenal boxing. You technically, I think, are a better striker technically than Jeremy Stephens. Obviously, we know he's got the knockout power, but you've also got the wrestling. You've also got the ground game. Do you feel like that is going to be, a big advantage for you in this fight? Maybe every fight, but specifically for Jeremy Stephens.
Yeah, it's about being the more well-rounded guy and dictating where the fight goes, always. And, I never go in there and just look for the shot, and I never go in there and just look for strikes. I try to mix it up. And I try to keep guys guessing. And, I'm definitely, I'll tell you my plan. Everyone's like, what's the game? My game plan is I'm going to throw a lot of punches. I'm going to look for takedowns. I'm going to look for ground and pound. I'm going to look for submissions. I mean, that's pretty much it. And, obviously maybe a little more detail when I'm with my coaches and whatnot. But, that's pretty much the game plan. And the fact that I am a well-rounded guy, I can excel in every area.
Yeah, I know Mark Henry is game planning because I talked to him a week ago, and when I called him in the morning, he said he had just done 4 hours of video study on Jeremy Stephens. That dude does a lot of studying for your fights.
He does. He's one of the most obsessive guys I ever met. I get texts all hours of the night telling me, clips of fights or whatever it is, something motivational. He's a madman, and we're lucky to have him in the corner.
Yeah, it sounds weird to say this, but in a way, you got to feel good that a guy is that invested in your career that he's spending that kind of time, video and study and just kind of obsessing about a fight and doing that. I don't know. You tell me as a fighter and coach, it's got to feel good that a guy's that invested in your career.
No, it is. He's one of a kind, Mark. His know-how of coaching is second to none. His the way he pays attention to detail is amazing, and it can get a little annoying at times because he's always on top of us. But yeah, he's the man, and we're lucky to have him, all of us, and he's gonna have his hands full at night, but I think he's gonna rise to the occasion like he always does.
Yeah, I love it. Let me ask you, Frankie, you haven't experienced loss very much in your career, obviously just a handful of times, but how much does the mindset change and kind of that, not necessarily the pressure, but just like the motivation to go out there and win and put on a dominant performance, coming off that last fight? Because listen, I can't sit here and tell you it's not disappointing. I know you're disappointed. So to go out there, New York, Madison Square Garden, that Biggie music's going to hit. You got Jeremy Stephens standing across the octagon from you. I mean, how big is it for you to go out there and really kind of put a stamp on this fight?
Yeah, this is what I've been thinking about ever since the July 9th, the night of my fight when I lost. Just want to go back in there and erase everything. The best way to erase a loss is going there and fighting a good fight and getting your hand raised. And that's my goal. Just kind of. I don't think I'll ever erase the loss completely. Any of my losses. I mean, that's, you probably remember the losses more than the wins. But it'll definitely a win. On November 12th will definitely make it sting a lot less.
Yeah. I'm curious, again, your focus is Jeremy Stephens and obviously getting back to that featherweight title, but what are your thoughts on the featherweight division right now? I mean, it really is in limbo. I mean, Jose Aldo is saying he's retired. Now, I don't know. I mean, he says it's done. He's walking away from fighting. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. Not that I don't think he's serious, but, I think cooler heads eventually could prevail and he'll come back. But let's just say, hypothetically, he says he's retired. Conor's fighting the lightweight. I mean, where is your head at right now? Because in a way, and again, I know Jose, I'm playing like he's actually out. There's no champion. There's no, this is such a weird time for this division.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's just who knows what the UFC is going to do? Who knows what Conor's going to do? He kind of calls the shots, a little bit. Of course, I think Eddie's going to go out there and get the win, so it may force him to come back down. I just think he is. I don't think he's going to come down. I think it's just the weight's too much for him to cut. I'm really not too concerned with what's next. I know if I go in there, take care of Jeremy, it's going to put me in a good position to fight for that title again in the future. And that's really the winning takes care of everything. So I got to make sure I go and get my hand raised, and then I'll worry about what's next.
Yeah, I know becoming a 2-division champion is something that's been very important to you, and I know everyone keeps saying, hey, maybe 3 divisions down the road, but let's get to 2 first. But do you understand where Conor's coming from, wanting to win that second title? I know that's your boy, and Eddie Alvarez, you're predicting him to get a win. I totally understand that, but do you understand the motivation of wanting to go out there and do that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't hate on Conor for anything he's doing. I mean, really, all the stuff that he's doing is actually good for the fighters in general. It's just tough, when I'm in the weight class that he's holding up, and some other guys are too, and I'm sure they're frustrated with that. But yeah, I mean, he has opportunity to hold a belt in 2 weight classes and at the same time at that. So that's never been done before. So yeah, all the power to him, But again, it's a big mountain to climb.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a weird thing because I understand where Conor's coming from wanting 2 titles. I also understand Jose Aldo's frustration. It's like I get both sides of the argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And about Aldo, I think if he really wants to retire and he just doesn't want to fight anymore, I could see him walking away. But if he's just pissed because of how he's gotten handled with Conor and everything, I do think, like you said, cooler heads are prevail. I think he's just pissed off, and once he realizes, all right, what am I going to do? I might as well fight. I think he'll come back. But again, if he really is just sick of fighting, then good luck in retirement.
Yeah. You got plenty of fight left in you. I know you're going nowhere though.
Yeah, no, I'm in it, man. I got nothing else to do. I'm bored all day long if I don't train. So I'm in the gym. I was even after this last fight, my face all mangled. I was running wrestling practice that first Wednesday, even working out a little bit myself.
Yeah. I'm curious, this is such a tough question to ask you, Frankie, but I'm going to ask it anyways, just because I'm so excited for this moment. I've been to MSG numerous times. Every time the UFC used to go to Jersey, obviously they always have stuff in New York. So I've been to MSG. I've seen it all. I know the atmosphere is going to be crazy. And again, this is stuff you'll probably appreciate after the fight. But have you thought about that moment, walking through the curtains, Biggie hitting, and let's be honest, Biggie, New York guy, come on now. I mean, that moment is going to be crazy. Like, can you appreciate that moment, or do you have to block it all out?
Yeah, I'm trying. I try not to get too hyped up yet because we're still a month away here. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try to take it in as much as I can. It's tough to take stuff in. When you travel and fight and do all this stuff, you want to kind of enjoy just the experiences, but you're so focused on the fight that you kind of it's hard to do that. But I'm going to do my best to take it in, but again, I'm going to be pretty much focused on the fight. But I'll try to smell that crowd and hear that crowd, feel it when I'm walking out for sure.
And if you can hear Biggie saying this one goes out to you, I know in some part of your head you're going to be singing along. I know that. I mean, Biggie in New York, come on.
Always, man. Frank White, King of New York, man. How can that go wrong?
I love it. I'm curious, Frankie, with this one, obviously you and Jeremy, I don't know, I think the thing's been finalized, but you and Jeremy are going to headline the prelims. Is there any disappointment in that, or are you excited for that slot? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was disappointed at first. I get it. They said supposedly Fox wanted me to be on the prelim and to head the prelims or whatever, and, it is a super stacked card. There's a bunch of guys on it, but, for the first one at MSG, I would have loved to have been, on the main card. And, it just sucks telling my buddies, hey, you got to get there early because I'm fighting earlier than normal. When you're used to main event or co-main event, 12 fights in a row, I think, at one point, you're used to that slot. But, I'm okay with it. I'm not crying about it. It is what it is, and it is a good spot. I'll be on free TV, so a lot of fans get to watch.
Yeah, there is kind of something cool, and I'm not saying this just because I work for Fox, but I know that there is something cool. I mean, I know, Fox has, wanted Uriah Faber a couple times. I mean, there's got to be something special about that they're saying, out of everybody we could have, no offense to Khabib or, any of the other great fights in the card, Miesha Tate, whoever it could have been, the fact that they wanted you, I don't know, I think there's, there is a compliment in there as well.
No, there is, and I appreciate it. The people at Fox have always been great to me. I've obviously worked with them on, for some analyst stuff, and I'm glad I'm considered for that position. Of course, I would have liked to be on the main card. My main goal, my one goal was to headline MSG, but that's going to have to hold off a little bit. We'll get there.
I was going to say, you got some title shots still coming, and don't slow down. You may not get the first one, but that doesn't mean you won't get one of them, right?
That's right, man. I'm not closing the door on anything.
Now, real quick before I get you out of here, Frank, I'm curious because I asked this question to Mark Henry because obviously Mark is coach and you got a lot of teammates on this card. Obviously Chris Weidman, somebody. So I mean, how and Caitlin Chukagian, I know she's fighting early in the night. How is that for you when you have teammates on the card? Is it better or worse when you have friends and teammates on a card?
I think it's better. It kind of takes the focus off of you a little bit. I mean, when everybody, the whole team's there and just worried about you. I mean, it's good in some ways, but it's also like. It's like all eyes are on you, and now it can get a little nerve-wracking. But I feel like, you got Caitlin fighting first, and I believe I'm fighting after that. Then you got Weidman, and you got Alvarez, and it's spread out perfectly. It's kind of just, it's almost like a dual meet in wrestling, and that's how I kind of would feel about it. I get to watch Caitlin start us up. I'll keep the ball rolling for Weidman and Alvarez, and fighting a little early, I'll get to sit back and enjoy the fights too.
Maybe have a beer while you watch Eddie Alvarez fight, right?
Yeah, maybe several.
And now, what are we predicting 4-0? Because I know that's what I asked Mark the same question. I know it's a stupid question to ask, but I'm asking anyways. 4-0, are we confident?
4-0, yeah, I am. I am very confident. I like the matchups, across the board, and of course I'm gonna stick with my team. Even Ali's got a couple other guys too, Rafael, Sapo, Natal, and Rashad Evans as well. So, it's going to be a big family event for us all.
And Khabib as well. I know Khabib's on that card too.
And Khabib, yes, and Khabib, man. So yeah, I could see us. What is that? That'd be 7-0. So yeah, I could see that happen.
Yeah. Now I got to ask you before I get you out of here, Frankie. You're a family man, okay? You got kids, you got a wife. I know you're a big family man. But be honest, if that goes 7-0, is there any way you're not partying in the Big Apple until I don't know, because this fight card won't even be over until 1 a.m. Be honest, you're not going back to Jersey till 6, 7 a.m., right? You're going to stay over there and party a little bit, right?
I'm staying. Hopefully I wake up in a bed, but I'm definitely staying out.
I love it. Well, Frankie, buddy, I always appreciate you taking the time, man. Safe training the rest of the way, man. And I look forward to saying this for years. I'm looking forward to saying it one more time. I look forward to seeing you in New York in a couple weeks, buddy.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, Damon.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, be good, bro.
Bye-bye. A huge thank you once again to Frankie Edgar. I understand Frankie's frustration when he talks about not being on the main card, but at the same time, I also understand that this card is ridiculously stacked. And when you look at Miesha Tate, Raquel Pennington, you got Chris Weidman against Yoel Romero, you got Cowboy against Kelvin Gastelum, and then you got 3 title fights. This card's going to go 4 hours. I don't know how many people paid attention to that, but the card is slated to go from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. This is running extra time, 4 hours expected run time. Obviously, you have 3 title fights. Potentially could all go 5 rounds. You have the fight with, obviously Joanna Jedrzejczyk and Karolina Kowalkiewicz. You have the fight with Tyron Woodley and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And, of course, the main event with Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor. It's just an incredible card. So I understand Frankie's frustration, especially considering where he's been at in his career to be, main event, co-main event, or, in that range pretty much, nonstop for the past, I don't even know at this point, 3 or 4 years. So I can understand his frustration, but at the same time, he does get a marquee spot. His fight with Jeremy Stephens is going to be the last thing people see before the pay-per-view. Arguably, you do get more eyeballs on you in that moment. Potentially, with the ratings on FS1, on Fox Sports 1, you get more people, eyeballing that as they go into the pay-per-view. Obviously, I think this pay-per-view is going to do monster numbers, so I don't think there's really going to be a loser either way in this whole thing, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think anyone should view being the featured prelim as a bad thing. I understand, being on the main card, in the old days, it meant more money, it meant more sponsorships, it meant more, lucrative, endorsements because, people would pay you as you walk because you get to see the walkout. In the pay-per-view, people get to see the walkout, and fighters a lot of times will wear hats or shirts or things like this, and sponsors would pay more because they know they're going to see the walkouts. Now, obviously, if you're fighting on free TV, you don't typically see the walkouts on FS1. You just kind of pick them up in the octagon, and they don't get that. Nowadays, with Reebok, you're not getting that anyway, so there's really not a big financial difference in that particular part of the sponsorships or endorsements, pay-per-view versus prelims, or pay-per-view versus free TV. Obviously, if you're getting pay-per-view points, that's a big difference if you're on the prelims. But I don't know Frankie's contract, but I'm not sure that he does. He may, I have no idea. But if he does, I can understand his frustration. If he doesn't, again, I think he's getting a great marquee spot, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Although I do understand this is a Jersey guy. He's a guy who trains in New York. He's a veteran. He's been around the sport forever. You kind of feel like you want to reward him, but I don't think this is a punishment, honestly. I think this is a good thing for Frankie. And speaking of the prelims, another guy, and our next guest, is also on the prelims, but it's definitely not a bad thing because he's got a huge matchup with Khabib Nurmagomedov this Saturday night at UFC 205. Michael Johnson, fresh off his knockout win over Dustin Poirier, did not hesitate for a second to accept a fight with Khabib on short notice, technically short notice, about 6 weeks, to take this fight at UFC 205. Now, after what we saw to Tony Ferguson last weekend, which I didn't even get a chance to talk about that, Tony Ferguson looked phenomenal in his battle with Rafael dos Anjos, biggest win of his career, beating a former lightweight champion. He kind of made a statement that, he should be the next guy. Now, Khabib can counter that statement with a really strong performance on Saturday night, but Michael Johnson, tough as nails. Very rarely has this guy ever been dominated his entire career, and he does hold a win over Tony Ferguson. So, let's talk to Michael Johnson about taking this fight with Khabib and what he hopes to get out of UFC 205. You got a big fight coming up, man. I always appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, no worries.
So before we talk about Khabib, let me backtrack a little bit, and let me first say congratulations on a fantastic performance, knocking out Dustin Poirier. I tell you what, man, you looked phenomenal that night, and I know you had a lot of doubters going into that fight. I mean, how much did that motivate you, and how good did it feel to go out there and just get that nasty knockout in the first round?
It was good. That's what I needed to do to prove to myself that I belong in this division, that I belong in this business. And that we're still progressing, as life goes on and this sport goes on. So it's definitely motivating to go out there, get back in the gym, and look to get that feeling right away.
Yeah. Obviously, I know you and Dustin did share in some trash talk before the fight. Beyond all the post-fight stuff, I know you issued the apology and you felt bad about the way things happened. But at the end of the day, how much of a vindication was it to go out there and knock out a guy who had been knocking people out? I mean, we can't deny what Dustin had been doing up to that point.
Yeah, it was good. And it was good to be that guy to, stop that little hype train that he had going, so going into that fight, it was a lot more than me just going in there and getting a win. Like, I had to go out there and get in a dominant fashion, and I had to show these guys that I am serious in this division. And he might have been knocking everybody out, but I'm going to look to get one this way.
Yeah, I love it. So let me ask you, after the fight, I know you did get to travel overseas. I actually had tried to get an interview with you before that, but you traveled overseas and visited the troops, right?
Yeah, I went over there for a few weeks. I did with Armed Forces Entertainment, and it was good. It was a great experience. I was over for 2 weeks. We visited a lot of the bases. So just to go over there, give 2 weeks of my time to these guys that that have sacrificed so much to go over there and do what they do, and I really appreciate that. And it was great to go over there. I got to roll around with the troops, and they might be not that talented, but they're some strong guys, and they gave me some good roles.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Everybody I've ever talked to that does something like that, says it does kind of put things in perspective to see what these guys, do on a daily basis. I mean, obviously they are the warriors. They are the people keeping us safe. I mean, how did it affect you after doing that?
It definitely it gave me a lot more to think about, and things could be like, man, you think we're in a tough sport, but no, these guys have to deal with this heat, and they go out here for months on end, and they're away from their friends and their family, and you just put a lot of things into perspective, and you do see how truly blessed you are, and the countries aren't as well off as us being in the States, and things aren't accessible as we have, so you definitely get a better outlook on life and know that you are blessed in ways that you don't really realize.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, in the middle of that, you're overseas, you're visiting the troops, and obviously this lightweight title fight comes up. Eddie Alvarez is fighting Conor McGregor. Obviously, after you beat Dustin Poirier, you made it very clear you want the big money fights. You want the fights that are going to get you to the title. So, I mean, talk about seizing a perfect opportunity to fight a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov, who was, offered the title fight. I mean, how well did this work out for you to be able to, knock out Dustin Poirier, and now you get a quick turnaround, you get to fight at MSG, and you get the number one guy in the lightweight division?
Yeah, it seems good, man. Everything was aligned perfectly, and that was the plan, and it's all going through as follows, and I just got to come through and capitalize. I definitely I stay focused. And I asked, and I got what I asked for. So I'm truly blessed for this opportunity, and I can't wait to get in there.
Yeah, in your mind, and again, I know you can't play into the minds of the UFC, but in your mind, is there any doubt that if you win this fight, you're going to get your title shot?
We'll see. I mean, there's a lot going on in this division. As we all know, and there's a lot going on at the top. So, depending on how other fights go, depending on if I go in here and get the win that I'm planning on getting, we'll see. But I'll talk to you the night in November 12th about that. We'll discuss that a little later.
So let me ask you about Khabib, because obviously Khabib has been undefeated. There's no denying the wins that he's racked up. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, but I saw another interview where it kind of felt like in a way Khabib has been painted as the boogeyman. The kind of the boogeyman of the lightweight division, the number one guy. No one wanted to fight him. Obviously, you wanted this fight. You asked for this fight. So kind of give me your thoughts on Khabib. Is he as good as advertised or not?
No, Khabib's great. Don't get me wrong about that. He's a great competitor, a great fighter. He's undefeated for a reason, and he's been doing it in the top of the top. So you can't take anything away from him about that. So I'm just gonna train hard, keep my head down, and then go in here and look to get a huge upset. So he is good, and I think guys really don't want to fight him because he's hard to figure out. He's an opponent that guys look at him and they're going to have trouble with him regardless. But, I didn't come into this business to stray away from the tough fights. I want the guys at the top, and, I want to put some names on my wall.
Yeah. Everyone knows Khabib comes, his biggest weapon is his wrestling. We saw what he did to Rafael dos Anjos and what he's done to most of his opponents, take him to the ground and beating him to there. Not to take away from his striking, but, your wrestling gets underrated a little bit, Michael, I feel like. Obviously you have wrestling in your background. How do you feel like that matches up? Do you feel like that's going to be a big deterrent for him? If he can't take you down, that could be a big weapon in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do got my wrestling, and that's still in my back pocket always. I just prefer to go out there and get knockouts. That's what I'm going for. So he's going to have to find me to take me down. So we all know that. So we're going to wrestle. I'm prepared to wrestle for 15 minutes. I'm prepared to strike for 15 minutes. But, he's going to have a pretty tough night just like I am.
Yeah. Now, you said, when you go out there and beat Khabib Nurmagomedov, it may be a bit of an upset. But do you look at it as an upset? Do you feel like, because, we've had this discussion before, obviously, take away the Dariush fight, take no credit away from Nate Diaz, who obviously, give him credit for the performance. But then you go out and knock out Dustin Poirier, and with what you had done in the division before that, is it really an upset if you beat Khabib, or are you saying upset just based on the rankings?
I'm saying upset based on everybody else speaking upset. They're on this hype train, but to us, it's not an upset when we go out here and we get this victory. That's what we've been training to do, and we've had some setbacks, and now we're right back on track, and everything's falling into place. So, I had my time off from this division, and now it's my time to come back and really take over.
Yeah. When you look at what you were able to do to Dustin Poirier, we saw a vast difference in speed. We saw a vast difference in striking technique in that fight. Obviously, that goes across the board, but how much do you look forward to showing that off against Khabib? Khabib has been, undefeated. We haven't really seen him tested necessarily. No one has really pushed him. I don't even know that he's lost a round in the UFC, not that I can remember. So, how much do you think that those things will play a factor, if you are able to, win the first round, if you're able to, win those first couple of exchanges, because we haven't really seen Khabib pushed into deep water.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm prepared to win every round. That's what I'm looking for. I'm prepared to win this whole fight from start to finish. I'm going to make him strike with me, and I think he knows that. I'm not an easy guy to come in here and take down, so he's not just going to come in and ragdoll me like he's been doing everybody else. I think he knows what he's facing, and we're going to have a great fight.
Yeah. You wanted to get on this MSG card. Obviously, some of your friends are on this card. Eddie Alvarez, obviously at the top, former training partner. Rashad Evans, of course, fighting on the card. How cool is it for you to be a part of this? And also, let's not kid ourselves. You're fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, main event's lightweight title fight. People are going to have their eye on this division, this card.
Yeah, it is. It's a big opportunity to go out here and fight on the first card in New York. But, at the end of the day, I'm going to New York to take care of business. I got to fight Khabib. I got to go in there. I got to get a victory. So, all the bright lights of being in New York and, everything else that plays into it really, it's really not on my mind. That's what I'm going in there to do, is just to take care of business.
Yeah. You made a strong statement after beating Dustin Poirier by saying that, you want to earn the big money. You want to make the paychecks. You talked about, Conor and Diaz, with kind of the performances you just put on. Do you feel like this is the UFC's answer to that, to say, okay, you wanted the big fight, you wanted the big money, here's Khabib Nurmagomedov in New York. Do you feel like they are answering your call?
Yeah, of course they are. You ask and you shall receive, and I asked for this, and they're going to give me the opportunity to do it. So they did their part, just like I always say. They gave me the platform. Now it's just my time to take advantage and shine. And please believe in 4 weeks, I'm definitely going to be a completely different Michael Johnson than what we saw in the Dustin fight. Like I said, my back's still against this wall. I still feel like I got a little chip on my shoulder, and I'm ready to go out here and prove a lot of people wrong.
Yeah. You sent a pretty strong notice, knocking out Dustin Poirier in the first round the way you did, and obviously dominating and winning that fight. How much of a statement do you think you're going to send to everybody else, whether it's just the fans, whether it's the UFC, or whether it's, the winner of Eddie and Conor, that you have arrived if you go out there and dominate, or let's say finish Khabib Nurmagomedov?
We'll see. We'll see we'll see what everybody takes from it. I'm still going to have my doubters at the end of the day, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to that just as I'm looking forward to this fight.
Yeah. I know it's impossible to predict how a fight's going to play out, and obviously at the end of the day, you'll take a win, whether it's a 3-round decision or a first-round knockout. But when you look at Khabib and you look at this matchup, do you see yourself getting a finish in this fight?
if I'm going to win, I'm going to win by a finish. Absolutely. And, that's what I'm going out there to do. I'm not going out there to fight and wrestle around for 3 rounds. Not at all. I'm going to look to get a finish, and that's what's going to get me the big money. That's what's going to get me what I'm asking for. It's not going to be me winning a 3-round decision, regardless if he's an undefeated guy or not. That's not what people want to see. That's not what people want to pay for. And, that's not the style of fighter I am.
Yeah. Well, this is a phenomenal matchup. I mean, the day that the rumor came out, the day of that press conference, everyone got excited. And then when, that Dana made the announcement at 205 at the press conference, everyone got excited. I don't know how much you're feeling or how much you even pay attention to it, but there is a lot of attention, a lot of spotlight on you and Khabib, and I know that's what you wanted.
Yeah, that's huge. That's motivating, of course. I love the response everybody gave of hearing that fight, And I just put it right into place. Everybody wants to see Khabib fight. Everybody wants to see if I can, match what I just did in my last fight, and it's going to be incredible. You got the lightweight title fight, so you can't ask for anything better at the top of this division, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm curious, and I know I never try to look past the fight. We had this conversation the last time when I was asking about Nate, but I'm not asking necessarily about what's next. But I am curious. Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor, who do you think wins? And also, is it tough for you because Eddie, I know you're not training together anymore, but you guys are friends, right? I mean, I know you guys trained together for a long time.
Yeah, of course. He's like a brother to me. I got a lot of respect for Eddie, and we've helped each other. We've been through hard times and good times to each other. So, we have a great relationship. So, I see Eddie getting the win, of course, but, I'm there to support him in his quest to defend the title. And, if it comes to a point where we have to fight each other, then, both of us are going to handle our business. But at this point, I'm worried about Khabib November 12th, and he's worried about Conor.
Yeah. But it would be nice to see both of you get the win that Saturday night, right?
Of course, yeah. We're gonna celebrate. It's gonna be a good night. Me, Rashad, Eddie. It's gonna be incredible.
I love it.
You can't ask for anything better. That's a great bond of brothers right there fighting on the same night. So we're gonna have a lot of great energy feeding off of each other. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Mike, I'll tell you what, man, this is a great fight. I'm glad you got it. This is one of my favorite fights on the card. And man, safe training the rest of the way. Safe travels to New York, man. I'll see you in just a couple weeks.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate the time. Right. I'll check you later.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Here's a question for you. Have you ever lost or thought you lost your phone? I mean, how terrible is that? Even if you found it in like 5 minutes. If you're like me, your life is on that phone. Well, guess what? Identity thieves know that too. And when you lost your phone and it winds up in the hands of an identity thief, it can be the beginning of a disaster, financially, emotionally, and even physically, that could take years to unwind. That's why you should protect yourself with Identity Guard. With Identity Guard, you get protection from the company that's been in this business for over 20 years. One that's helped protect more than 47 million people. Identity Guard continuously monitors millions of transactions and articles and sends you all the news, tools, and guidance you need to minimize your risk. Plus, if you were to become a victim of identity theft, Identity Guard's victim recovery specialist will be there to help you through the recovery process. Identity Guard even offers identity theft insurance with coverage up to $1 million. So get the identity theft protection service that's right for you. Visit Identity Guard at identityguard.com/podcast. A big thank you, as always, to Michael Johnson for stopping by the show. Obviously, huge fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov, prelims FS1 this Saturday night. Cannot wait for that. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to the women's strawweight champion, her fight with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, who is now training down in Florida as part of American Top Team, which is an interesting move, which we'll discuss with her in a second. I think, when you're a champion, it's easy to get... Complacent's the wrong word, because I don't think Joanna's complacent whatsoever, but I think it is easy to fall into routines a little bit when you get with the same coaches and the same training partners. And Joanna is such a high-level fighter with so much success, you kind of wonder why tinker with it? Why, if it's not broken, why try to fix it? And I don't think that's the case with this. I think Joanna realized that she could up her game by training with someone as good as American Top Team and coaches like Mike Brown and all the guys there, plus, fighters in her own division, which may be frustrating to them that now the champion's stepping in there. But you got Jessica Aguilar, you got Tisha Torres, you got other other fighters down there. The women's bantamweight champion, Amanda Nunes, is down there. I mean, listen, there's just no shortage of great fighters at that camp to help her, in addition to the coaching staff. So I get it. I mean, listen, you're never going to hear me say a bad word about somebody choosing to train at American Top Team, one of the best teams in the world. And I understand. And listen, you know, Carolina is a very tough opponent. I think Carolina is going to be a tough matchup because she does have, you know, striking that could potentially, you know, match Joanna at certain aspects of this fight. But ultimately, I don't think the title switches hands in this one. I think Joanna is so good. She's so dominant. I think the fighter who had the best chance to dethrone her was probably Claudia Gadelha. When you looked at her grappling combined with her striking, I think her grappling really made a difference. And, you know, her takedowns to kind of negate Joanna's weapons a little bit on the feet. She couldn't be as offensive minded, as aggressive, knowing that Claudia could swoop in and get that takedown. I don't think you're going to get that with Carolina. She's very much a striker in her own right as well. So I think this is going to be a Joanna, you know, just a showcase performance. You know, Carolina has shown to be a little bit slow out of the gate. I don't think that's a good sign against someone as dangerous as Joanna. I think by the third or fourth round, we're going to see Joanna really bust her up and get a finish in this fight. I think it'll be kind of a showcase performance for her against a very tough fighter in Karolina Kowalkiewicz. So I look forward to that one very much. So yeah, with that said, don't delay any longer. Let's talk to the champ, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, as she gets ready to face Karolina Kowalkiewicz at UFC 205 on Saturday night. Hi, Joanna. How are you?
Hi, I'm very good.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with. I'm good. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
No problem.
So, how is everything in Florida? I know you've been at American Top Team for quite a while now. How are you adjusting to life with your new team?
So good. So far, so good. I'm very happy to be here in Florida. It was good move, good choice. American Top Team is amazing place with good people, great coaches, top-level fighters. So my camp was amazing. I feel ready. I moved to Florida also because of my doctor and nutritionist, perfecting athletes. And I have amazing team. And I feel like I step on better levels.
Yeah. You know, you are the champion, and you've been a very dominant champion. So obviously things were working for you before. But what prompted this change? Was it just something you wanted to do? Was it something you've been thinking about doing? Why now?
You know, it was very difficult for me to make a decision because, of course, like you said, like you saw, that I had very good coaches. You know, I used to live in my hometown, Austin. And my family is there, my fiance is there. Everything was very easy, but now I felt like I had to change something, and I did that. You know, it was difficult, big decision for me, difficult decision for me. So I put like my whole life and fighting career on one scale. But so far, I'm very happy. I felt like it was one of the best decisions in my life. Sometimes you need to get fresh air into your head, into your body. You must change your game. You must change the place where you live. You must change the people around you just to step on other level, on better level, just to get better. So definitely, I feel like I challenged myself for the last few weeks at ATT. I learned new stuff from Mikey Brown, Kami Kattel, other coaches, from other people, and I feel like it's my place to be. Of course, I'm Polish. I will fly back and forth to Poland because of my family, my fiance. But I feel like I feel like I'm ATT family member. You know.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Joanna. You know, you have beaten, you know, the best of the best since you've gotten to the UFC. But I am kind of curious your impression of Karolina, somebody you're very familiar with, somebody you fought as an amateur. You know, what have you thought of her performances in the UFC, and what danger does she bring into a fight like this?
You know, probably going to see the best Karolina who we ever saw in the UFC, because I know how it is to be a challenger. You know, your dreams, you can make your dreams come true, but not with me, because I will stop her. You know, and I will definitely defend my title because I put on great camp for last 7, 8, 9 weeks before this fight. So I feel ready to go. but Carolina is very strong. Her cardio is very good. She's trying to exchange the punches. So she had a really good fight in the UFC. But they said that they have plans for me. They know how to beat me. But there is no way. There is no easy way to do this. And believe me, they can have hundreds of plans, of game plans, till the time they will step into the octagon with me.
Obviously, Joanna, you've dominated, most of your fights in the UFC, and you've had some pretty dominant finishes as well.
Yeah, but I'm trying to stay humble. I'm trying to stay focused, and I'm trying to keep my eyes open, my head down, and I'm trying to learn every day from everyone, from my coaches, from my mistakes. There is no excuses, so that's why I'm trying. I don't know if I'm so dominant, but I'm trying to keep my belt with me, and I know that there is no other recipe than hard work, and that's all.
Yeah. With that humility, you mentioned on the conference call a couple days ago that you want to go down, as the best ever. You want to go down undefeated as champion. I know you have a ton of respect for Ronda Rousey. I know she's a friend of yours. I know she had talked about that for a long time, retiring undefeated and retiring as champion. Sadly, obviously she lost her fight. I mean, do you learn from a situation like that where, she had to go through that? I mean, to see, somebody that you respect, go through that. But you said the same thing. You want to retire undefeated. You want to retire as champion.
You know why? There is one big problem, People don't understand the difference between the word confident and arrogant. Arrogant people are not good, and they are not making success, They are not successful. But confident people, are people who put on work every day. That's why they are a champion. They are the champions. They will become a champion one day. This is who I am. This is who Ronda Rousey is, who she was, and who the champions are. We have more than 500 fighters in the UFC. There is only 11 champions. There's probably thousands of other fighters. Why there are not the champions? You know what I mean? We are so confident because we put on work every day, but we are not arrogant. And the thing is, we know how hard it is to get into the top and how to stay on the top, And Ronda proved that so many times. I proved that so many times. So the thing is, before every fight, when I walk through the octagon, I visualize my victory. Of course, I want to win, but in the back of my head, I have those feelings that it's a sport. Just put on great fight, show them who you are, put on great performance, but doesn't matter if you're gonna win or learn or lose. It's all about the sport, and that's the thing, We want to win every fight, but the thing is it's a sport. In every sport, we win or we lose. So that's the thing. One time, Ronda lost, but she's back. She fights my teammate, Amanda Nunes. I don't have predictions for this fight. I respect both of them. I know Ronda for a longer time, but I think it's great that she's back, and it's going to be a really epic fight at the end of this year.
Yeah, that's got to be tough for you, Joanna. I know you and Ronda are friends, and now you and Amanda are teammates. That's got to be tough on you.
Yeah, it's very tough. So that's why I don't want to talk too much about that. I don't want to put nobody in that shadow. You know what I'm talking about, because I respect Amanda, I respect Ronda so much. So I like I said, I don't have predictions for this fight because I like both of them. They are very good human being people, and that's all.
Yeah.
About Ronda and Amanda.
Yeah. Throughout your career, Joanna, you have headlined and been a part of some big shows. Obviously, the fight last year where you were on the card with Ronda, over 55,000 people in attendance, all that. But I talked to Dominic Cruz yesterday, and he was telling me, it feels good to, be on a card that so many people are going to watch, and it's going to be a big moment for you financially. I mean, do you feel that way with you, getting this shot to fight in New York, to fight Carolina, and to be on the card with people like Conor McGregor and Tyron Woodley?
Yeah, like this fight's supposed to happen in Poland, but I'm very happy that I'm gonna face Carolina in New York, in the probably third the biggest city with the Polish population. So it's amazing. I think that this fight is going to be really big fight, very like very. So many people must see this fight.
Yeah, absolutely, and.
Yeah, so the thing is, I'm very happy that I am on the same card with Conor McGregor, with Eddie Alvarez, Tyron, Steven, with other great athletes like Khabib Nurmagomedov. We fight for the money. It's our job, so of course. But if I have to do this for free, I could do this. Like I've been doing this for 10 years. I would invest in myself. People see me as a champion. They think that I sleep on money. Isn't true. I make some good money right now. But the thing is, like they don't know how much money I put into my career, into my life, how hard I've been working. I was having like regular job, and I went to the gym 2 times a day. I've been competing. I was paying for my competition. I was representing my country on Muay Thai tournaments. So this is who I am. This is what made me. And I can be thankful to myself, to my family, that they were like that I survived. And I got to the top.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Joanna, it's always
hard work paid off. That's a gold motto,
Yeah, that's what Conor always says as well, right?
Yeah, that's true. People think that that we think that we're not gonna lose, or we are going to be undefeated. It isn't true. We are confident, and we know, how much and how difficult it is to get to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joanna, thank you as always for the time. I appreciate it. Safe travels to New York next week, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. What a show we've had. Big thank you once again to the champ, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, for coming on the show. And we're going to close things out with one final interview, and one of my favorite interviews I've done in the last couple weeks. One of the best guys I've ever known in the sport, former Strikeforce fighter, current UFC middleweight, Tim Kennedy. He's taken on Rashad Evans, another fight on the prelims to go along with Michael Johnson and Frankie Edgar, who have already been on the show. This fight anywhere else would probably be a co-main event at worst, and now it's on the prelims because UFC 205 is just ridiculously stacked. So we're going to talk to Tim Kennedy. Tim's been out of action. It's been over 2 years since Tim Kennedy's fought. His last fight was a very controversial ending to Yoel Romero. I was at that fight, did not agree with how that whole thing played out. Yoel being given extra time to sit on the stool after he was nearly knocked out. Obviously, kudos to Yoel for coming back from that and finding a way to knock out Tim Kennedy in the next round, but it's really unfortunate considering how Tim basically TKO'd him. He couldn't get up off the stool, and they allowed him to sit there for an extra time over the 1 minute allowance. It's really unfortunate that happened, and I didn't like it one bit at all, and I think Tim Kennedy has a legit beef about that. But obviously he's back for at least this one fight. You'll hear more about that in a second. Obviously he has a history with the current middleweight champ Michael Bisping. That'll be very interesting as well. So let's talk to UFC middleweight and UFC 205 prelim fighter Tim Kennedy. Tim, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm great.
I appreciate you taking time to chat with me.
I appreciate you chatting with me.
So how is
regardless of the time?
So how is everything, man? Obviously, fight is about a week and a half away, man. It seems like I was actually at your last fight, so it feels like it's been a while.
It has been a while. It doesn't just feel like it. It has been. So your feelings are founded in reality.
Where all have you been training? Have you been staying down in Texas for this one? Did you get out to Jackson's at all, or?
I did. I did 2 months fight camp, and I did 4 weeks of it, or 3 weeks of it in Austin, and 5 weeks of it here.
Okay, gotcha. So now you've been very busy. While you haven't necessarily been fighting in the last 2 years, you've been very busy. I get emails from Sheepdog Response. I want to thank you for putting me on that list. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So you've been a very busy guy. You haven't technically been fighting, but you've been very busy. So what have been the bulk of these last 2 years for you with all the stuff you've been doing?
Oh my God. We made a movie. We produced it, financed it. like a feature-length film that went into movie theaters and did awesome, Range 15. I did the stunt coordinating. I acted in it, and my company, Ranger Up, financed it in partnership with another military apparel company called Article 15. I was in a TV show called Hunting Hitler, which aired last year, and then we went and filmed season 2 this year. I was in a TV show that just aired yesterday, day before yesterday, called The Triumph Games. It's a 4-part athletic series that I'm the host of and the narrator on CBS, which is pretty cool. I started a company, defensive tactics company, which is a branch off of my military contracting company. And this defensive tactics company does law enforcement, military, and civilian how not to get murdered by evil people classes, and PSD classes, and situational awareness classes, and biometrics, and it's doing fantastic, wonderful things. And we recognized a need after starting this company that most law enforcement, police departments municipally are broke, and the police officers are undertrained. And they don't have the equipment that they need. So then we started a 501c, a nonprofit called the Sheepdog Survival Fund, which we will launch after my fight in November, around maybe a week before Thanksgiving. And that is going to be to help military and law enforcement units get the training and equipment that they need so they don't get killed.
So you've been very busy.
Oh yeah, we started another company, a shoe company called Woobies, which makes military. They're like special operations shoes that look like Vans. They're really badass. And then Ranger Up is still kicking ass. So yeah, that's been my, I don't know.
So you've been doing all this. I remember, I think the last time we spoke, it was around the Range 15 movie when that was coming out. I remember when that trailer dropped. So you've been very busy. So I guess the big question is, have you missed fighting?
No. Nope. I have not missed fighting at all. I have enough competition in all the other areas of my life, where it's, it's shooting or fitness stuff or business or, hello, son. That my son just walked out and explained to me that he's going to go to bed. It's pretty brilliant. So I don't, like right now, I am eating Atlantic or Pacific halibut ceviche as my dinner, and that's it. I'm like looking at a bowl of fish and lime juice, and I'm like, seriously? I want a brisket and some sausage and some, maybe a bourbon, or I don't know, maybe a rack of ribs or something like that. But instead, I'm having little tiny bits of whitefish and lime juice with an avocado. I have an avocado as my good fat. No, I don't miss this. This is dumb. I still have like 20 more pounds to cut, or 15 more pounds to go, and I only have 11 days, so this is dumb.
Yeah. So why? I mean, you've been a fighter. You've been a very successful fighter. You have a win over the middleweight champion of the world. You've been a top middleweight for, the past, 7, 8 years, whatever it's been. But you have a lot of success outside of the sport. You're one of the guys that kind of set yourself up to where you didn't have to fight, I guess is the best way to say it. So why come back? What was the reason?
Well, having a win over the champion and being the champion are two very different things. And I hope that my performance on the 12th at 205, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I've been. It's not like I've stopped training. I'm still a special operations, special forces sniper, Green Beret. That trains 2-3 times a day. And having this no pressure to focus on a fight in the past 2 years, I've been able to get really, really, really good. I've gotten way better. So a reason to come back is not only that it's historic, that it's at Madison Square Garden, that it's the first fight in New York, that I'm fighting Rashad Evans, who is, a perennial contender, a former light heavyweight champion, one of the best light heavyweights in the history of the sport, now coming down to 185 for the first time. All of those things are huge, fantastic reasons to come back. But also, Michael Bisping is a champion. And I think my performance at 205 is going to say, Tim really doesn't have a loss in the UFC. He has that thing with Yoel Romero, whatever. Besides that, he's dominated every single person that he's been in the cage with in the UFC. You have to go back to like a Strikeforce title fight to find a loss. And Michael Bisping's a champion. I think he was my second fight or third fight in the UFC, and I destroyed him. So I'm hoping that people after this fight will say, if Michael Bisping is going to fight anybody, it should be Tim Kennedy. Because, if he's calling out a 47-year-old man and talking about trying to redeem a loss, how pathetic is that? That, he has to call out a 47-year-old guy, but he won't even utter my name as if it's like I'm like Voldemort or something. We're in a Harry Potter book. He's like, it's the name that must not be spoken, because he knows what would happen. I would take that belt from him effortlessly. I would do it in the first round, and so that would be nice. Instead of beating the champion, being the champion. I like that. That sounds better.
Yeah. You, obviously over the last couple of years, since the Yoel Romero fight, and I won't talk much about that one because I was at that fight, as I mentioned, still does not sit well with me. And if it doesn't sit well with me, I'm quite sure it doesn't sit well with you. But that being said, I know you've had some complaints about some of the things that have happened in the sport over the last couple of years, Reebok being maybe at the top of the list and some of the other things. But have you kind of come to terms with some of that, enough to where you do want to fight again, where you want to do return to the UFC? Because like I said, this is all a choice. You don't have to do this. You have a career. You don't have to fight.
Man, I don't know. I'm into this fight. 205. It's a big fight. All the things about it. Being the biggest fight in UFC history. Being on that card for that reason, that's huge. But am I back? No. Am I after this fight? If Joe Silva or whoever the new hierarchy of the UFC matchmaking is going to be, and really, there's no way for any of us to know. If there's not whisperings, if there's not gleanings of a very clear movement towards the title, I have nothing emotionally invested in the sport. I care about the athletes, and I think that it's still a tragedy, and it's tragic how the sport is right now. Where we just sold for $4.3 billion, but we have guys like Verdum that are getting suspended for not coming in line with, what we're in the narrative that we're supposed to be saying. It's still, they want us to be independent contractors and individual athletes, but yet I have a USADA guy that comes into my bathroom and watches me shower at any hour. Right now, as I'm talking to you on the phone, there would be absolutely positively nothing wrong with them knocking on my door and coming in and taking blood and urine from me at their convenience. That is not an individual contractor. That is an employee. Where I have to tell them where I'm at every single second of the day, every moment, every place I go, every gym I go to, right now I'm living in Albuquerque in a rented house while I'm doing my fight camp. I have to update my whereabouts to the hour. Well, kind of the minute, but so no, I am not back. I am back for this fight. I am back to beat Rashad. I'm back to be on the biggest card in UFC history. And I'm back, hopefully, that after this fight, they can say, man, Tim Kennedy maybe should be fighting for the title. Michael Bisping, get your eye better so Tim can beat you up.
And I think your stance is 100% correct. And I know one thing I want to make clear, because I know you've been a staunch supporter of more, drug testing in our sport, is that you support drug testing, but if they're doing the things they're doing, you're an employee and you should be treated as an employee, I guess that's the best way to say it, right?
Yeah, the distinction, man, 100%. I'm sorry if I was unclear. I love being tested. I'm proud when I'm tested. When I'm tested, I'm like, oh, hey, look, here, they're taking my blood, or they're taking my urine, or this is the 5th time this week. I'm all about it. Having been in the sport for 16 years, I have fought the most roided out dudes in what will be the history of the sport. And if you look at like the guys that I beat while they were roided out of their brains, hopefully maybe my career will be held in a better light. But yeah, so I'm not complaining about being tested. I'm just saying that because of the way that we're organized and the way that we're treated and the expectations and requirements of us, there's a clear distinction between what an employee is and what a contractor is. And when a guy can come in and watch you shower naked and then hang out with you for an hour and then take some blood and then say, hey, maybe I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. or maybe I won't, but make sure you're updated. Now we're talking employee stuff.
Yeah, I agree. 100% I agree. I agree 110%. And you're not the first person to tell me that. And I'm quite sure you're not going to be the last person to tell me that. And I think the athletes should be willing to speak out about that because guess what? The only way things change is if people are actually willing to change it.
Yep. But winter is coming. Winter is coming. Those times are nearing.
I agree. Let me ask you about this fight, Tim, because I do love this matchup. You and Rashad, I talked to Rashad a couple weeks ago. Obviously, I'm sure you're familiar with Rashad. I don't know. You tell me. You've trained at Jackson's on and off for a long time. Were you ever there when Rashad was there?
Yeah, we trained together. Maybe in total 6 to 8 sessions. So I don't remember if he had I think I had a fight camp or I came in for his fight camp, but yeah, we've trained together a few times.
Okay. So clearly, this is not a guy you dislike or have to, have any bad blood with, any of that kind of stuff. But this is a big moment. This is Rashad going down to 185 for the first time, a former champion, you mentioned, and I agree, one of the best light heavyweights of all time, one of the most established UFC fighters of the last decade, I would say. I mean, one of the most easily recognizable names in the sport. This feels like a very big fight, and this feels like a very big moment for both of you. He's from New York, obviously first card in New York. I mean, there are a lot of special things about a fight like this.
Yeah, it's a huge fight. I don't know how much I'm going to feel about, I'm going to get booed when I walk in there. Him being from New York, it's going to say, even though he's from he's like from Niagara Falls, and any New Yorker is going to be like, dude, that guy's not from the city. That guy's pretty much from Canada. But that's all right. I'll be okay with it. I still love that city. It's huge. The card is huge. It's not just, while this fight, the fact that Rashad and I are on the undercard, if that's a testament to how massive this card is, top to bottom, every single fight in it, it's from 3 title fights. We got Frankie and Chris and that other jerk. This is massive, and I'm pumped to be part of it.
Yeah. What's crazy about this, Tim, is, technically you've been away for a little while, but when you look at what you've done in your last few fights, I mean, the knockout over in Hall, again, I was at that fight. I remember what a special moment that was for you at the Fight for the Troops. You have a dominant 5-round decision over Michael Bisping, very dominant, lopsided performance there. And then, you knock out Yoel Romero. I'm not going to look at the 3rd round because you knocked him out and you finished him. Do you feel like, that this feels like you can kind of reestablish yourself in a big way with a fight like this if you go out and have a big performance, a knockout, a finish, another, dominant performance over a guy like Rashad Evans, and then we can't ignore the fact, like I said, Michael Bisping, by the way, will be in New York next week. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he will be there live in attendance. He's doing UFC Tonight on Wednesday, so he will be there watching when you go out there and fight.
Nice. So I hope he's dressed nice because he's going to get some camera time when I crawl over that thing and start screaming at him, Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo style.
I love it.
Got to figure out where he's seated.
Now, are you prepared? Because I know you travel next weekend to New York. Are you ready to be in New York when the election results come out? Are you ready for this? Because I just realized that I fly in on Tuesday. I was like, oh man, the election results are coming out Tuesday night.
No, I don't. Well, I mean, God, I have no idea what's going to happen. Not even who's going to get elected, which I don't know. I have no idea or really care. It's like frightening, are people going to be rioting or are we going to be in New York and things are going to be burning, or is it going to be like, I don't even know. I don't know. And I'm not allowed, I'm not going to be allowed to have a gun there. So that makes me sad, and feel vulnerable. So yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know how to answer that question.
I'm pretty sure. Well, here's the thing, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I'm pretty sure both camps, Hillary and Trump, I think, have their victory parties or, whatever you want to call it, are in New York, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure they're both in New York, so that's going to be really awkward.
Yeah. And Trump Tower, I mean, it might even, Trump's thing might be at Trump Tower, which is like a block away from Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting night on Tuesday, I feel like.
Oh, man.
I realized that when I booked my travel, because I booked it late enough because I wanted to be able to vote. And then I realized, I could do the early voting. But either way, it's that Tuesday. I was like, oh, man, that's going to be a crazy week. Get through the election and then have a great fight card that weekend. That's the way to cap it off with a great fight card.
Yeah.
Will be an interesting time in New York, I'm sure.
God, no, I don't even know. It's gonna be like, what was that movie? It's Trapped in New York, right? Isn't that what it was from the '80s with Kurt Russell?
Oh yeah, Escape from New York. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be us. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't know. What should we do? I'm like, I don't know. Well, we got to get out of here so we don't die. I don't know. It's just.
As long as it all stays together, through Saturday night, right? We got to keep it together that long. So we got to have the card at Madison Square Garden. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, this is your fight with Rashad, and obviously you got Weidman and that other guy fighting on there, and then it's interesting because the other fight that everyone was talking about with Rockhold and Jacare. Unfortunately, that fight is not happening now, and Jacare's off the card. I feel like there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on these two fights taking place next Saturday night because, like I said, there's no clear determination. The UFC has not said 100% anyone is going to get the title shot, and you do have the win over Bisping. I like I said, I don't know who wouldn't vote for that. I'd like to see it again.
Yeah. The first time we fought, he had spit on one of my friends and talked some smack, and then illegally kneed another one of my friends. So I just wanted to beat him up for 25 minutes, But now he has the belt. Now when I fight him, it's not going to be me going out there to be a bully and be like, hey, don't spit on my friends or cheat when you fight. It's going to be me taking the title from him, and it's going to be violent. It's not going to be 25 minutes. It's going to be maybe about 3 or 4 minutes before I put him away. So it'd be a different fight. And I know he's not going to want that fight. So, he's going to be calling out dudes that haven't fought for a couple of years, the Nick Diaz's and the George St. Pierre's. Or maybe he could call out Dan Henderson again, and see if he could get him out of retirement as a 47-year-old dude. But he doesn't want to fight anybody in the middleweight division. He doesn't. He doesn't want to fight Chris Weidman. He doesn't want to fight me. He doesn't want to fight Jacare. He doesn't want to fight Luke. Of all those guys, I think, especially after 205, I'm going to have a good case, and he's going to have to deal with having to fight me.
Yeah. Well, to get there, obviously, you're going through Rashad, and I'm kind of curious how you see this fight with Rashad playing out, because there are a lot of unknowns with Rashad, because Rashad, listen, he knows it. I talked to him about it. He's going through a little bit of a down period in his career. He's had a couple losses. He knows how big this moment is for him, and it's his first time down at middleweight, but that's a lot of pressure, and that's a lot to carry into a fight like this, and also being in his home state. So what do you expect out of Rashad, and what kind of performance do you expect out of yourself in this fight?
I think we're going to see the best Rashad we've seen in a while. I think him moving down to 185 pounds is going to force him to have to train. I think the last couple of fights, he's been behind the desk. He's been behind a microphone. He's been in front of the cameras. Money's been easy. He's a former light heavyweight champion, and he hasn't had to train to make 185 in a weight. He at 205. He may maybe lose 20 pounds. He can have a little looser diet. But for him to come down to 185, he's going to have to train hard. He's going to have to watch his diet hard. So I think this is going to be the best Rashad that we've seen in maybe 4 or 5 years. And that's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm hoping. And, I know what I'm going to bring to the table on that night. And I know that the best version of him in 5 years is still going to lose on Saturday night.
Yeah. I love it. Well, this is a great fight, great card, and I'm glad you're back for this fight. I'm not gonna say you're back permanently, but you're back for this fight. You're a big part of this card, and I'm always excited to talk to you about fighting, Tim. So I appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to seeing you in New York. Less than a week away, man. It's coming up quick.
I know. I can't wait. Can't wait.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time as always, Tim. Like I said, safe travels out to New York, man. And I'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. The most stacked show I've done in a long time. 5 guests deep. And a big thank you, of course, to the champ, Eddie Alvarez, the champ, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, Frankie Edgar, Michael Johnson, and, of course, Tim Kennedy for all stopping by the show. Make sure you follow us on iTunes at the Fight Society Podcast. Make sure you follow us on SoundCloud, also under the Fight Society Podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Damon Martin. I will be updating all week long from New York. I'll be shooting some video at the open workouts. I'll be at the press conference, doing some stuff at the early weigh-in. So, yeah, it's going to be a crazy good week in New York. Cannot wait. First time the fights have ever been in New York. I've been lucky enough to cover a lot of UFC shows when they've had the fights in Jersey, and over the last few years they put a lot of the pre-fight stuff going on in New York. They've had press conferences at Radio City Music Hall, and obviously they've had things going on at MSG before in terms of like media days and things like that. But this will be the first time they've actually had a fight there, and it's going to be special. It's going to be a unique, a special night. I can't wait. Madison Square Garden, maybe the most historic, most known arena in the world, hosting the UFC for the first time. This card is going to be bonkers. I don't see any way this card is not ridiculously good. At the end of the day, with guys like Tim Kennedy, Rashad Evans, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Michael Johnson, and Frankie Edgar and Jeremy Stevens on the prelims, and then of course, on the main card, you got Miesha Tate, Raquel Pennington, Cowboy against Kelvin Gastelum. You got Yoel Romero against Chris Weidman, and then of course the 3 title fights capping off the bill. This is just a ridiculously good card. Real quick, 2 final picks I want to give for the main and co-main event. Tyron Woodley against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I do like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to come out and win the title and defeat Tyron Woodley in this fight. Tyron Woodley definitely has ways to win this fight. I think he can definitely get it done. But the problem is he's a very early momentum fighter. He needs to come out and really put it on Wonderboy early and either get a lot of takedowns or, punish him and try to get a finish early, because I think the longer this fight goes, as the time ticks away, it starts to favor Wonderboy more and more. And I think Wonderboy's defense, if he can just kind of avoid Tyron's aggressiveness early, I think Wonderboy will get it done. But listen, Tyron Woodley, man, I didn't pick him to beat Robbie Lawler, and he went out there and smoked Robbie Lawler in the first round. So you could have knocked me over if I thought that was going to happen too. Tyron Woodley has a chip on his shoulder, and deservedly so. He's once again an underdog. And once again, people are picking against him, myself included. And so I get it. So this kind of motivation, this kind of momentum could absolutely fuel Tyron Woodley to a victory on Saturday night. And then the main event, of course, you got Eddie Alvarez against Conor McGregor. I've gone back and forth. I've flip-flopped on my pick on this one so many times. I almost hate to give a pick because I feel like by Saturday night, I'm going to have flipped again. But I've told a couple other people, and I've gone on the record a couple other places and said that I think Conor will win. I think Conor's his offensive onslaught and his accuracy will be a big deal. He's going to have about a 4 or 5 inch reach advantage as well in this fight, which I think will bode well for him because he does a really good job of sticking out that lead punch, that lead right hand, and then following it up with that big left hand behind it. Eddie Alvarez has improved leaps and bounds working under Coach Mark Henry, and I think that, to me, is the biggest difference in this fight, and I think that's the biggest difference we saw in Eddie Alvarez winning the title against Javier Dos Anjos back in July. But I think in the back of his mind, in some part of it, Eddie Alvarez really wants to go out there and punish and hurt Conor McGregor, to kind of expose him, so to speak, and kind of prove that this guy isn't as good as everyone makes him out to be, that he's not this superstar, he's just a big mouth, and he's not a great fighter. But I think when you get into those tendencies, when you get that in your mind that you want to go out there and just really destroy a guy, you start to make defensive mistakes. And I think that's what could backfire on Eddie Alvarez. If he goes out there and he's just looking for the kill, he's going to have a hard time blocking punches with something other than his head. And I think you can't do that against somebody like Conor McGregor. Listen, Conor McGregor may not, if he wins the title and he holds on to it, he may not be a long-reigning lightweight champion. It's not easy to hold on to that lightweight title. When you're facing guys like Javier Dos Anjos and Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov, that is a snake pit of a division. But stylistically, I think Conor has a better shot here than he probably would against other guys like Tony or even Khabib. Khabib would probably be the nightmare matchup for Conor, considering his wrestling and ground control. And if Khabib could do it over 5 rounds, that's exactly the last place Conor would ever want to be. But like I said, this is a fight where you kind of figure Eddie's going to go out there and want to strike with him. Eddie actually has a lot better clinch work and a lot better wrestling than Conor. But again, I think he wants to go out there and prove a point. He wants to kind of, make an example of Conor McGregor. And I think when you do that, you get away from what got you to the race in the first place. I think what helped Eddie against Aviel Dos Anjos was the fact that there was no anger, there was no bad blood. He just wanted to go out there and fight and win a title, and that's and that's ultimately what he did. And I think when you fight that kind of relaxed and you're just out there kind of doing your thing, you're a much better fighter. I don't know that he's going to have that mindset going against Conor. I think he really wants to go out there and hurt Conor. And listen, let me tell you this right now, he absolutely could. He could come out there aggressively, get in Conor's face, hit him a couple of times, and drop him. Conor has been dropped before. We've seen that. Eddie has an incredible chin, has incredible durability. This guy is like never say die. I mean, the couple of times he's been finished have either been lightning quick submissions, like when he fought Shinya Aoki, or when he went through like a 5-round war and lost in the 4th round to Michael Chandler after they had a freaking epic all-time great battle back and forth, and he finally succumbed. I think it was in the 4th round when he got submitted in that fight. So Eddie Alvarez is tough, okay? And if Conor can't put it, basically what I'm saying is if this fight goes past round 2, it swings heavily in Eddie Alvarez's favor. If it ends early, it could absolutely end for Eddie Alvarez as well. He could go out there and just put a hurting on Conor McGregor. But I think if Conor goes out there in these first couple of rounds and plays it smart and doesn't go out there and really has a smart tactical game plan like he did against Nate Diaz, I think we'll get the job done. All right. With that said, I want to say thank you to everyone that tuned in this week. It was a pretty awesome show. Obviously, I wanted to load it up for the end of the week, or for the beginning of the week for Fight Week with UFC 205 this weekend. I want to say a big thank you once again to Eddie Alvarez, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, Michael Johnson, Tim Kennedy, and Frankie Edgar. We will see you guys next week for more Fight Society podcasts. Make sure you tune in on Saturday night, UFC 205 from New York. We'll talk to you then. See you then.